Hi there, wig lover. Heather here, in my pajamas, because that's professional. I was, going through some emails kind of late at night, because right now I'm hanging out in England, so everything's like 5 hours ahead over here. And I was forwarded a link to a thread on Alopecia World by my business partner, who is a guy, but he's like really sensitive about this stuff. And he thought that I might want to chime in on this because he actually felt really bad for the girl who wrote um, this post. It's called "I Feel Like Wigs Are Dominating My Life," and I'll put a link in the description of this video. And I thought the best way to handle it is the way I handle most things that might be beneficial to more than one person. Is I thought, well, heck, I'll just make an impromptu video because, what's more authentic than being in pajamas and not wearing a wig to show you that you don't actually need a wig to be you. You don't. You don't need to be perfect 100% of the time. It's okay. People who love you, they love you. They love who you are. And it's not just about the hair. And, I own a wig store, so obviously I wear wigs most of the time. And I'm a big fan of wigs. I wear all kinds of wigs. I have a lot of them in my personal collection. I change up styles and colors frequently. But I enjoy it, It's one of those things where at first I thought it was a pain in the butt, but after a while, I really came to enjoy it, and it became kind of addicting, and now I have a lot of fun with it. But at the beginning, it wasn't like that. I very much felt very similar to the way that this poster felt, where, I was super worried that anytime the wind blew that people would know, and that, people were watching my hair way more than they actually were. Because when you go out in public, like you might now, because you wear alternative hair and you're aware of it. But before you had to wear alternative hair, were you always like looking for people's lace fronts? Were you always looking at their edges? Were you always looking for wefting in the back when the wind blew? Of course not. You were just like, yeah, that's their hair. That color's really cool. Okay, moving on with my day. So, my first thing to tell you it's gonna sound harsh, okay, but it's totally meant to be reassuring, all right? Even though it's totally gonna sound harsh at first, but take it for what it's worth. Get over yourself. Do yourself a gigantic favor and get over yourself. No one is paying attention to your hair the way that you pay attention to your hair. Now, that's easier said than done, obviously. What I usually tell people to do when they start wearing wigs for the first time is to wear them around the house for a little while before you debut them in public. And that way you can kind of get used to the way you look with a full head of hair. Because if you're, not used to that, like let's say you've got androgenic alopecia like me, and your hair has been kind of falling out gradually, it's kind of a shock to throw hair on and then be like, whoa. Because it always looks like too much hair. 100% of the time, even if it's not, even if it looks totally great, to the person who's wearing it, if you're not used to that much hair, it's totally gonna feel like way, way too much hair. Especially if that hair loss was up here, you're gonna be like, what is going on up in here and with all this hair on the sides? And sometimes, yeah, the wig will need thinned because they do come with a lot of hair on them compared to, what a person will normally grow. But that trend is fading. More and more manufacturers are catching on that we don't necessarily want a ton of hair on the wigs, to the point where it looks wiggy. And they're accommodating that. The new trend is less dense wigs. And it's slowly kind of coming around to that. But even when people get low density wigs, they still sometimes will feel like that's just way too much hair. And you always have to keep it in perspective that if you're experiencing gradual hair loss, like gradual alopecia, as opposed to like, the more abrupt hair loss that you can get from autoimmune alopecia or, chemotherapy or drug-induced alopecia. If it's more gradual, sometimes it's just a shocker to go from no hair to all the hair, and you gotta kind of gently ease yourself into that. wear it around the house so that your friends and family can get used to it first, so that you can get used to it first. When you see yourself in the mirror, you'll go, oh, 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 oh. You'll start to get used to it. You'll start to kind of like the way you look. But it takes some getting used to. And you don't necessarily have to do that entire process out in public. Another thing that people like to do, especially if their hair loss is only on the top of their head, is start with toppers and then gradually work your way into wigs. I actually did that myself. It hurt my hair a lot because I was wearing toppers that were entirely too heavy for the amount of thinning that I have on the top of my head. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my topper video. I go over it a lot. But it's just one of those things where, sometimes you need a baby step. Some people don't always want to jump right into the deep end of the pool. They want to dip their toe in and adjust to the temperature first, and that's okay. Now, all of this being said, it feels like the person in this thread has tried wigs. She may still be kind of new to them. For the profile picture that I see on Alopecia World, she looks really great in them. She looks really natural and looks very pretty. But, she doesn't feel that way. And that's important, because feels are real. They're real. And, just because they're sometimes hard to put into words, just because people can't see how you're feeling all the time doesn't mean that it's not real and that it's something that needs to be addressed, because your emotions are important and how you feel about how you look is important. Now, the wigs are supposed to be like a tool. They're supposed to be a way for you to cope with the hair loss and start to feel a little bit more normal. They're also really helpful for helping you pass in society, so that way people don't, stare at you. Because people are not very evolved. I'm going to take a sip of water now. You know what I mean. Okay, so not everyone is super evolved. So yeah, if you go out in public with a shaved head, or you've lost all of your hair on the top of your head, or you've got any kind of hair loss sometimes that would prompt you to, wear your hair really short, people can sometimes be a little cruel about that. That is the reality of the matter. And so it's helpful to wear wigs so that way people don't call attention to it. They don't, you just look like a normal person and they see you, not the hair. That sort of thing. It doesn't look like some kind of unintentional political statement or something like that. Now, that being said, I have gone out in public with a shaved head, and, I felt very comfortable, especially in the summertime, but people can be rude, and I'm telling you that from firsthand experience. But one thing that did help me with the going out in public with a shaved head is that anxiety, I'm just going to say it, anxiety's a bitch. It really is. And the reason why anxiety can get such a hold on you is because the unknown is often scarier than the known. And so you'll freak yourself out with all of these possibilities of what could happen if, the wind blows, or, your cap slips, or, oh no, what if people detect that I'm wearing a wig? What are they going to think about me? And, Blondie Locks actually made a really great video about this, about how confidence is really the only thing you need to wear a wig. It's true. And the great thing about, going out in public and letting people see what your hair actually looks like is that it sort of kills the anxiety associated with, oh my God, what if people see that I've lost my hair? You realize, okay, a good analogy that I like to think of, I roller skate. It doesn't look like I do, but I totally roller skate. And, I'll take my friends with me once in a while, and they probably haven't roller skated in, 20 years or something like that, because I'm old. And they clutch the wall. They don't want to let go because they're super scared of falling. And I tell them, fall. Just fall. Just do it. Get it out of your system. Let your body fall, especially if you're not going fast. Just fall, and then you're not going to be scared of falling. You'll let go of the wall, and you'll just skate. And sometimes you just need to do it. You just need to get the anxiety out of the room, so that way you can find a way to make peace with your body. Your body's not the enemy. Just because it's not cooperating, just because it doesn't look the way that society tells you it should, it doesn't mean that it's the enemy. And that's really difficult, especially if you've got cancer and you're going through chemotherapy and that's what's causing you to lose your hair loss, or radiation can damage the hair. It's hard to remember that your body's not the enemy when parts of it kind of are. But that's when things get really complicated and you can't find a homegrown solution to find a way to make peace with this. That's when it might be time to call in the big guns. It might be time to go talk to a licensed therapist, and that is not admitting defeat. That is not saying that, there's something really wrong with you or that you've got some horrible weakness or something like that. You're allowed to have these anxieties. You're allowed to have these insecurities. It's normal. Completely normal. And if you need some guidance making peace with yourself and how you look, and a wig, because a wig's not a therapist. A wig is basically just a hair mascot that you wear on your head. It's there to help. It's like a safety blanket, but it's not really, a cure-all for everybody. There are some people who will feel uncomfortable no matter how great they look. Like this particular poster, she looks amazing from what I can tell. But how you feel about how you look is so important. And sometimes just throwing money at the problem in the form of buying more hair isn't enough. Sometimes you just need to talk to somebody. Know you're not alone. Know that what you're going through is normal. And that can help a lot. Because what I think that this particular poster would be very surprised to know is that this is normal. This is so normal. There are hundreds of thousands, millions perhaps, of women in the United States. I mean, think about this. There are just as many women with hair loss as there are men. There are just as many, okay? But men don't have to hide it. They don't have that compelling social pressure. Now, some of them think that they have to, yeah, but there's not the same level of intense social pressure for them to hide it, which is why you don't see a lot of bald women walking around. It's kind of an act of courage, And so don't worry about it. Just because you don't see that women around you have the same thing that you have or are going through the same thing you're going through. They are. Lots of them. For every one man you see with the chrome dome, there is a woman out there somewhere too. And so you are totally not alone. This is totally normal. And if knowing all of this doesn't give you some kind of comfort, then you really should try to talk to somebody about it. Because no one deserves to sit with that amount of anxiety and insecurity about this. It's something you shouldn't have to live with, and it is something that with a little bit of help you should be able to fix. I mean, and by fix I don't mean get over it. I mean learning how to cope with it, learning how to live with the new reality. It will never feel the same as the old reality, but it can still be good. It can still be fun. You can still feel pretty. You can still be you. And you can be you without the wig. So that's all I want to say about this. I just felt really compelled to say something because, I just felt so awful for this poster. And I'm sure that what she's going through is very, very common, especially among people who, have not quite adjusted to themselves. So, alrighty, as we all know, comparing ourselves to everyone else is a killer. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't compare yourself to all the people around you that you think have really long, awesome hair, because you got to imagine that a good proportion of them are probably wearing extensions or wigs too. So, like I said, it's way more common than you think. So, alright, until next time, wig lover, I hope you have a great night. Bye-bye.